began this morning with a wonderful and meaningful interfaith experience, even within this Christian community. And certainly part of why we did that was in honor and to recognize the loss of great life in New Zealand, and that we wanted to show a sense of unity and compassion and solidarity. And I am so pleased that you have come this afternoon for what I think is going to continuously be a very important subject, and a beautiful subject on friendship. And I'm so delighted that you are presenting. So I just want to extend a warm welcome. I'm one of the pastors here, Lori Hafner, and on behalf of the rest of the staff and the congregation, thank you again for being here. And we're going to have an introduction of our speaker, so thank you for doing that.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. It's lovely to meet all of you, and thank you for hosting this event. I was talking to the rabbi a few months ago that one of the objectives of the new Jaffa Center at FIU is to actually create a new paradigm, a new way of looking into interfaith dialogue by dealing with the contemporary problems around us. And of course, the issue of hate, race, economic inequality, environmental crisis are fundamental to that. So this is our first effort, and thank you very much for accepting us to come down. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you a good friend, an old friend, a family friend, Professor Mahallati from Oberlin College. He told me to be very, very, very brief. Just give him my name and I'll come and talk, but I will do a bit more than that. Professor Mahallati is currently presidential scholar in Islamic Studies at the Religious Department of Oberlin College. He also holds the Nancy Scrondike Chair in the Middle East and North African Studies. He received his PhD in Islamic Studies from Yale University after completing the Harvard Fellowship for Persian Studies in 2005 and 2006, and several other degrees that he told me not to go through that. So he has taught graduate courses and lectured at Columbia, Princeton, Yale, and Georgetown University. He has served as a senior scholar and affiliated with several academic and religious institutions focused on international relations, including the Middle East Institute, the Center for Strategic and International Affairs in Common Ground in Washington. As an ambassador, he was a former ambassador of Iran to the United Nations. He played a significant role in ending the Iran-Iraq war in 1988. So maybe he will share some of that experience in either this talk or later at FIU. He has published extensively. I think the book that I'm using in my classes, in my graduate classes, is Ethics of War and Peace in Iran and Shia Islam, which was published in 2016. He had also a big hand in poetry and translation of Persian mystical poetry to English that we may share with you a bit of that. So it's my great pleasure to invite Professor Mahallati to give us maybe 30 minutes conversation, and then we can open the floor for questions. And thank you again.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for the elaborate introduction. I feel at home for a number of reasons. And probably I have to share one small anecdote with you that somehow relates to the feeling that I have. On one hand, of course, the tragedy that happened a couple of days ago was one of the most disastrous in terms of its callousness, tragedies that happened in the name of probably historic justice, because of the thought in the sick mind of the criminal that somehow the problem comes from Muslim communities. And that tragic incident, of course, is further impetus for us to think deeply about interfaith relations, about the course of our civilization, where we are going, why we are going the way we are going, and whether we need a paradigm shift, which relates to my subject matter today. On the other hand, I'm heartened to be at this beautiful space because as I'm standing at this place, I'm standing on a beautiful Persian carpet, probably made in Khan, central Iran. And Persian carpet is one of the best products of Persian civilization. If you want to know Persian culture, Iranian culture, you don't need to read lots of books. Just look at this pattern, where lots of curves and angles interplay with each other, where you see that there are lots of flexibility in terms of pattern, which shows a mentality that is flexible and negotiable. And symbolically, that is a very important perspective that we should have in mind. At the top of this church, I see a tower, a beautiful tower, that is, in terms of its pattern, rooted from Seville in Spain, connected to Islamic civilization, 1 millennium there. And I feel that I'm totally at home, Persian carpet underneath the tower. Wow. And the beautiful red color dominant here, that is my favorite color, so I drive a red car. I feel perfectly at home. The anecdote I wanted to share with you just crossed my mind. A few years ago, I was with a friend on North Sea, and we decided to write a letter to God and throw it in the middle of the night to the ocean. But it was about our wishes. And there, if I'm right, I wrote, "Oh God, please give me $10 million because I want to create a center for friendship studies, somewhere important with good audience." And since then, I've been waiting for $10 million, even charging God with some interest. It should be $12 million by now. There is no sign of it. However, the great sign is that I'm with you here, and I can feel it. Probably I don't need that $12 million, which I appreciate. But these sentiments, being with the pastor and the rabbi together, professor from my hometown, the beautiful audience here, a little bit of understanding among us brings friendship as the new paradigm that our civilization needs at this very juncture. Thank you for our host, Pastor Hafner, Rabbi Hein. It's great to meet you here, and I hope that this is the beginning of a long-term relationship. Both of them already conveyed that they have some connection with Ohio and Cleveland, and to make me even further deeper at home. But also thank you, Dr. Musbai, for having arranged or worked on this. Jafar Center is a great news in Florida. It's a really wonderful news that in the middle of all negative news, there is a hope for future. And I commend those people who look at the high horizons of future and create institutions. We need more and more institutions. And the goal of these institutions should be to build bridges. And the bridge is actually a concept that I want to talk about today, a bridge of friendship by looking at our tradition, common Abrahamic tradition, well based on Judaic, Christian, and Islamic tradition. And unfortunately, a tradition that, a part of tradition that we have overlooked almost for no reason. And I'm going to mention that there are elements of friendship as a tradition deep into all of these faiths that can be rediscovered and brought into building a bridge where we can meet again and help that paradigm shift that I mentioned. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your audience. I have 3 questions. But let me read a line from Shiraz. I mean, Shiraz is barely can resist reading a line of poetry, because Shiraz is a city of laid-back people. They don't make much money, but they compose good poems. So Hafiz and Saadi come from Shiraz. نبود نقش دو عالم که رنگ الفت بود زمان طرح محبت نه این زمان انداخت. At the 14th century, Shirazi poet says that the pattern of both worlds, here and hereafter, did not exist when the color of love and intimacy was there already. The time, over time of history, has not created the concept of love, at this juncture. So it wasn't a preordained, pre-eternity. Love is a substance created in pre-eternity, and of course will stay till eternity. 14th century poet thinking along these lines, I feel that, wow, we need to think deeper, and maybe it's not daydreaming. Maybe we can bring it to reality, what he's talking about, that this is the common denominator of humanity, a common denominator of all faiths. Okay, so I want to raise 3 questions, and please, when it comes to the 30 minutes, just give me a sign, because I said yesterday, when you get a good audience, it is really hard to stop the speaker. A Persian proverb says, if you hear something good, it is the audience. It is the good audience, the quality of the audience that is speaking. So I give you credit if I say something meaningful, and thank you for your presence. Why friendship? My question. Number 1, what friendship? Question number 2, why friendship? It's the other way around. Why friendship? What friendship? How friendship? And I want to answer it very briefly. Hopefully later on, if we have time, we can elaborate on that. But why friendship? Well, let's look at the last century. This year is 2019, right? So it is exactly 1 century after 1918, which is the end of the First World War. What were the major monumental developments in the last century, if we want to just recollect, pay attention? Well, that century began with the end of the First World War, with the terrible memory of the First World War, soon to continue with the Second World War. Together, these 2 wars took, more than 100 million lives. 100 million lives. And so one of the characteristics of the last century was war, which continued all the way till the on philosophical, social life, in the domain of private life, what was dominant? Well, individualism. Individualism came from modern philosophers. Of course, self-autonomy became the most important value. After that, self-autonomy, of course, individualism, which meant freedom is so important that I'm going to spend all my relations, or many of my relations, in order to gain my self-autonomy. The question was, so what? Suppose you are the freest person on earth without any relationship, you call that life. But nevertheless, individualism became dominant, and neoliberal economics came later on, and of course consumerism and lots of problems that we don't want to get into that. So individualism and war are the 2 characteristics with which the last century began, all the way to the end, which is 2018. What were the 2 characteristics dominant in the world as we experience, right? It's very fresh in our memory. Well, in Europe, in political scene, in America, we saw elections that brought supremacist unilateralist politicians to power. We witnessed Brexit. We never thought that the beautiful concept of European Union would ultimately come to this episode. Brexit was a major shock. So the beginning of unilateralism, then America first came, and again we are reinventing something that we experienced heavily in the past, disastrously, but nevertheless we are reinventing those ideas, and we think some of us, maybe these are fresh ideas, which are not. They are archaic and bankrupt ideas. What else? Well, in January 18 or 17, 2018, the government of Britain, paradoxically, created the first Minister of Loneliness. Wow. Minister of Loneliness, why? Because Joe Cox wrote a report saying that 9 million Britons are suffering from all kinds of mental diseases because they don't have any kind of social relations. And individualism, the primacy of freedom as the most important virtue or value in life, has had its full effect, and people are getting lonelier and lonelier. And they have all kinds of mental diseases. We have to do something because the insurance cost, the health ministry is paying heavy money in order to take care of this. We need the Minister of Loneliness. It was because of bad taste. We don't call Ministry of Injustice in order to take care of injustice. We don't call Ministry of Unhealth in order to take care of health. They should have called it Ministry of Friendship. That was the key. To sum up, last century, war, unilateralism, individualism, loneliness. These are the 4 characteristics that define our century. Now, what is the antidote to all 4 characteristics? Friendship is against war. Friendship is against unilateralism. Friendship is against individualism. Friendship is against loneliness. And therefore, that is why friendship. And my answer to question number 1. Second one, what friendship? Michael Mitias is a great political philosopher, has recently written a book and talked about the unfortunate event that in the 5 phases of Western civilization, 5 phases of Western civilization, unfortunately, friendship lost its momentum in 3 phases, the last phases, namely, in the Hellenic period, friendship was ultimate, most important goal of political philosophy when Aristotle and Plato were alive, and it was really applied in society. So friendship ruled as the most important goal of political philosophy during Hellenic time. Then came Hellenistic time after Alexander conquering the good part of the world. Still friendship was important and practiced and a goal of attention for authors here and there. But as we come to medieval time, then friendship loses its momentum, and then authority comes, the Catholic authority comes, so salvation becomes gradually a solo venture. Salvation in Hellenic and Hellenistic communities are not solo, solo venture. Friendship, actually, your salvation, your happiness depends on your friendship with other parts of the society. But that lost momentum, and then the authority, obedience, to be obedient to the authority, and then next life, this life is not so important, and therefore we lost friendship, lost momentum. St. Augustine, who is the founder of Christian theology, was not very friendly with friendship. I'm sorry to say that, he has important statements here and there, but he suffered from loss of some friends that he could not handle it well, and it needed St. Thomas Aquinas to come and pay a new and fresh attention to the question of friendship. And he tried to, build a bridge between Christianity and the Aristotelian concept of friendship or philia. To a certain extent successful, not fully, because the Protestant movement came later on, has pushed aside, unfortunately, friendship as something that is not a virtue and not a key for salvation in this life and the next, and therefore friendship was pushed aside in the medieval time. When we come to modern time, Kantian philosophy, Enlightenment also took justice as the most important element, and then friendship, because of the way it sounded partial, it was pushed aside. It didn't work. Individualism came, self-autonomy came. Again, friendship did not have any house to live. We come to modernity, then post-modernity, also neoliberal economics. In any case, friendship did not have any chance to come back as a paradigm in the happiness, in defining the happiness of human society, all the way till now. And it's unfortunate. In reality, it was only after the Second World War when philosophers, great philosophers like Hannah Arendt, Gertrude Armstrong, and some others, Elizabeth Telfer, many of them women, for your credit. They came and said that, no, we have to revive Aristotelian ethics, and with it, ethics of friendship. And why we pushed aside friendship? Friendship is important. So as we come to 21st century, in the last couple of decades, suddenly friendship scholarship is taking really important momentum, and friendship studies become serious again. Let me go back. Now, this is the history of the West and what friendship. So my answer to what friendship is that friendship as a paradigm of moral life has to come back, as Mithias rightly mentions. Now let's go to the Muslim world and see what happened on the other side. Interestingly, early on when Aristotle wrote about friendship, Muslim authors were highly impressed by these ideas and adapted it into their Islamic worldview. When we come to 11th century, we see at least three major monumental moral thinkers or ethicists that write on friendship, wonderful treatises. Let me mention them. Abu Ali Miskawayh, who has the most important person who made commentary on Aristotle, writes extensive on friendship, and he said that yes, Aristotle was right. Friendship is important. Friendship is important. It's no wonder that Aristotle dedicated 2 chapters of his Nicomachean Ethics to friendship, and one chapter to justice. And yes, friendship is more important than justice. And so within Islamic worldview, we can consider that notion. He said, oh, wow, I found it. I read Quran, and I see the word human being comes from the root word insan. The word is insan, which is human being in the Quranic text. And insan comes from the root word ons. And what is ons? Intimacy. The human being, therefore, he defined, is a creature who is defined by his endeavor to make intimacy, to be intimate, companionship, to be friend. He said, oh, okay, therefore, it perfectly fits the Quranic worldview. Human being is a friendly creature. And this is in the 11th century. Right? And then he said that, oh, okay, so what is a political philosophy? What's the role of leaders, a philosopher king or prophet here in the vicinity of the significance of friendship? He said that, look, Sharia created rituals. And these rituals were focused primarily on bringing people together. And therefore, the pilgrimage is an invention, is an institution invented in order to bring people together and give them their for the opportunity to experience friendship and companionship. How about Congressional Friday prayer? Well, it is built in Hadith tradition that the Prophet says, if you do your prayer, daily prayer at home, you get certain credit. If you come to a mosque and do it together, you get 5 times more if there are 2 of you. If there are 3 of you, you get 10 times more. Exponentially goes up. That is a mechanism in language to say that, hey guys, the point of prayer is not to do it alone at home. Go and do it with somebody else and stand next to another person. And the companionship is a part of the prayer. Very significant, integral part of the prayer. And so what is the role of the leader of an Islamic society? It is the person who takes care of institutions of friendship. It's not spreading justice or applying justice, but taking care of institutions of friendship. This is Abu Ali Mascaret in the 11th century. Then came another contemporary gentleman, Raghib al-Isfahani. He said that, oh look, this is what I believe according to my Islamic faith and my readings, that justice is a substitute, is a caliph for kindness and friendship. But justice, khalifa he used, is the caliph of love. Which means when love does not exist, we need justice. When love does not exist, we need justice. Well, Aristotle long ago said, and this is really a true story, that when I was, 12 years ago, I was reading Aristotle, one sentence of him dragged me all the way till today to deal with this subject matter. When he said, in a society based on friendship, there is no need for justice. But in society based on justice, there is still need for friendship. And so I wonder why and how beautifully Islamic ethicists actually adopted this concept into Quranic. And they said, by the way, Quran is telling us something very important. And this is the verse of Quran, وَلَوْ يَأْخُذُ اللَّهُ النَّاسَ بِمَا كَسَبُوا مَا تَرَكَ عَلَىٰ ظَهْرِهَا مِن دَابَّةٍ. The Quran says that if God wanted to deal with humanity according to justice, not a single living creature would have been left on the face of the earth. And therefore, so with justice alone, we cannot sustain. The world cannot continue. Therefore, you need something in the realm of justice plus in order for the world to continue. Then Raghib al-Isfahani said that, well, there are 2 kinds of political societies, fear-based and love-based. The fear-based are artificial society. He said, clearly, fear-based society is an artificial society. We need to create a natural society through kindness. And then it was Abu Hayyan Tawhidi, another scholar, incidentally from Shiraz, who came in and wrote the first book, the entire book on friendship in 11th century, As-Sadaqa al-Sadiq, in which he said that perhaps true friendship could be established on a bridge with 2 pillars, one in faith, one in rationality. And the combination of rationality and faith can produce the best of friendship. In 13th century, a couple of centuries later, in the middle of the Mongol attack, then we have Nasiruddin Tusi, another great theologian and political philosopher, who comes directly on the subject and says that, look, justice is cold. Justice, fairness is a great virtue. Fairness, he said. Insaf. But look at the etymological root of insaf, which comes from the Arabic word nasafa, which means sharing, splitting in half. So fairness means splitting in half. The action of splitting in half cannot create unity in society. So fairness cannot be the main engine for a good society, for a natural society. We need something more than justice, about justice. Justice is justice cannot bring unity in society. This is 13th century masculine literacy. Let's switch to Christian world. Why St. Thomas Aquinas was far more friendship-oriented than St. Augustine? Well, history tells us Muslim actually translated good part of Aristotelian text into Arabic, preserved it, in order to deliver it to European countries later on. And therefore, St. Aquinas, I would say, that owed it to Muslim authors that finally read Aristotle, and therefore his perspectives that deviated from St. Augustine, and adopted friendship as a very important part of the faith, and said that, well, charity is friendship with God. St. Thomas said something very important also. He said that, you know, God did not owe creation to the creation. Without owing creation to creation, God created us. Which means this was not done on the basis of justice. It is on the basis of benevolence. It is on the basis of love. And something that is, can be called justice plus. And he said that, before that, St. Thomas, they said that, well, charity should be totally impersonal, without, without connection to the face of the person. This is not, charity is not a matter of personal relationship. Charity should be universal, right? Without preference. St. Augustine said, well, there may be some kind of solution in between. No, charity is very important still. Very important. Loving your neighbor, loving your enemy. Well, those are important. But yes, you have to be charitable, but first to your friends. Be charitable first to your family. So compose, build a bridge between Aristotelian concept and the Christianity that was not so friendly so far during medieval time with friendship. So he did a great exercise. When I look from this stance now at St. Thomas Aquinas and Nasiruddin Tusi, contemporaries, one in the heart of Muslim world as a minister, and one is a pillar of Christian theology, I say, wow, their ideas are so close. Look at them. It sounds as if they are in direct conversation. They both read Aristotle. They both agreed that faith and religion agrees with the Aristotelian concept of friendship, the essentiality, the primacy of friendship. Right? Coming forward, we come to great theologians on both the Judaic and Christian side. We read Buber, Martin Buber, who says that, wow, I and thou, without a thou, without a you, I cannot define myself. And without a friend, without that specific relationship, impossible for me to define myself. And life is not about possession, because any possession is I-it relationship. Right? And I-it relationship is not the right one. I, thou, me, you are a living creature. And therefore, without you, I cannot define myself, right? Buber said that. And Jonathan Sachs then later on, whose living came on, said that, well, religion is moralization of love. In his book on partnership. Amazing work. And so we see that, Judaic theologians coming in and probably read the Babylonian Talmud and say that friendship or death. And say, wow, friendship or death. Yes, let's bring it to our philosophy. They did a brilliant job. Now, coming to Christian theologians, you come to read James Shaw and Paul Waddell and Werner Gilrand and say, oh, wow, they are coming back and say, no, friendship matters. Paul Waddell says that without exercising friendship, the wholeness of humanity cannot be experienced. The wholeness of our humanity. Friendship was so important in a moral action. I see, wow, Paul Waddell, you are in negotiation with Miscavige in the 11th century, because he was saying that if you don't exercise friendship, you cannot exercise morality. Religion is about relationality. If you are in less relations, you are less religious. So Paul Waddell is in conversation. And then I read a hadith by Imam Sa'd, because Aristotle said that if you are friends with everybody, you have no friends. You don't have time and energy enough to be friends with everybody. You have to pick a few limited number of people. Then Imam Sa'd, a great scholar of Islam, comes in and said, no, be friends with as many people as possible, because one of them may have the power of intercession in the next life. You never know. Then I come to 21st century and I read James Shaw, and James Shaw said that, look, human being is immortal. We don't die. And considering next life. We don't die, which means we have infinite time to our access. Infinite time, we have infinite possibility to be friends with everybody in life. So he counters Aristotle. He says, no, be as much, find as many friends as possible. We come to Werner Gilman and said that, look, what is the religious truth? Can we find religious truth by reading a text? No way. Religious truth could only be experienced, where? Through conversation with your friend. Outside a conversation with your friend or counterpart, there is no religious truth for getting. Which means individually there is no way for you to find religious truth. Well, I go to Sheikh Baha'i, the Safavid, 17th century Safavid, he said, knowledge, the true knowledge, is not knowledge unless it leads to love and relationship. So I see, then Sheikh Baha'i is in conversation with Werner Gilman. Now my question is that, where are these conversations? Why we are not paying attention to these important, significant conversations that can help us bring friendship as a paradigm shift in our system that is too much focused on justice should be done, distributive justice or punitive justice, which is the main drive of international relations. Beyond tolerance, I read the Charter of the United Nations. In the beginning it says international relations is based on tolerance. What is tolerance? It's a negative virtue. It's still a virtue, but negative. It means I prefer you did not exist, but now that you exist, I have to put up with you. This is the basis of, the formal basis of our international relations. Now, why don't we wake up and say, this cannot be the basis of international relations, for God's sake. Finally, have I passed my time? I apologize. Okay, my just 2 minutes. Gilles Deleuze is a great French philosopher. Gilles Deleuze. He says that, philosophy was first a friend with a friendship. Philosophia, by etymological analysis, you see that they were neighbors. Philosophia and philia were neighbors. So philosophy was highly friendly, lived in the neighborhood of friendship. Right? Through wars, human beings developed a philosophy of war. Concepts like just war, and all kinds of concepts came in because philosophy itself became hostile. And philosophy became the originator of all kind of alien production. So we have all kind of vocabularies. This guy is alien, this is a stranger, this is enemy, this is, all kind of terminologies were created through this philosophy. And now, after having suffered so much, we need to go back. But it's not very easy. We need to produce post-war philosophy so that later on maybe we would be able to create a friendly philosophy. So 2 steps at least. I want to use the argument of Gilles Deleuze and apply it to theology. And I want to say that at this juncture we also need a post-war theology, so that later on we are able to take theology back to its original navel, which is love, the original cradle, that is love. And therefore we need to take exactly those 2 steps. And remember that both Talmud, according to the quotation that I made, and Bible has beautiful statement about friendship when Jesus said to his disciples that now that I have conveyed all what Lord has given me to do, now I no more call you disciples, I call you friends. So, in conclusion, roots of friendship as a civilizational paradigm shift exist in biblical, Quranic, Talmudic, Judaic, Christian, Islamic sources, primary sources. They exist in both postmodern theology and in classical Islamic theology. And you can see that there are huge potential for conversation between theologians of Abrahamic faith to arrive together and meet and save humanity from the vicious circle that we are experiencing at this juncture. Thank you very much.
You mentioned that you commenting on talk or conversations.
My command should open up a section.
Let's see, I guess we could present ourselves as for any questions and then maybe have a conversation. Seats here. Let's greet the folks who are here today. Nice to see everybody. I'm just a guest as well, so questions, or maybe you might want to pose a question for.
I would like to hear your feedback in view of everything that you stated about friendship. I think that at present, the leadership in the United States is totally the opposite, radically the opposite, which I think is a very, in view of what you said, how civilization moves and how you actually should embrace these principles in a very fundamental way. How do you see what kind of interaction can come in either from inside within the United States or from other nations, or from the European Union and from the Islamic world, to create an impact in that this our view of the supposed leader of the world is so absolutely out of line with what you are proposing. What kinds of actions or influences or can we do as citizens or uniting with other people, creating friendships? Any feedback on that?
Well, let's see. That's a subject that I have been wrestling with now for a few years. How to change the dynamic in politics. there seems to be an increasing polarization that I think is not new. It's not new to the last couple of years. It's probably been developing at least through decades, really. But it's gotten worse. And it's become the dominant mode. I think there's a kind of, what people might say called social Darwinism, that it's the fittest who survive, and that it's kind of you have to try to beat out and win over your opponent, which I think is completely destructive and to the fabric of our nation and our world. There's a story in the Talmud about someone who was a passenger on a boat who was thirsty or wanted to wash himself and started to drill a hole in the floor of the boat, right underneath and the people around him became alarmed, and he said, "What's it matter to you? This is my space right here." And so he's, this is not only self-destructive, but destructive to the entire culture. And not only is he responsible, but the ones around him that say, well, it's just, let people do what they want. That doesn't work either. So I think there has to be a culture change, a political change that's going to have to happen to, I guess when it gets bad enough, people will realize that we're destroying ourselves, and it just leads to failure and destruction.
I'm interested in this question about religion or friendship in politics and how it works. I'm just going to stand up so I can see folks out there. I was intrigued last Thanksgiving that there were people out teaching folks how to get along at the Thanksgiving table, because for one of the first times that folks could remember, people were gathering around Thanksgiving tables, good friends, longtime friends, family members and so forth, but the discourse that was happening was so painful and so awkward and so hurtful that they weren't sure how they were going to sit around these tables. And so people were getting instructions on how to do that because of the political discourse or lack of it that's happening, especially here in the United States, but certainly worldwide, whether it's through Brexit and some of these other things. And I can't quite grasp how we get to that place of friendship when we are so opposite from one another. How do we get there? We're doing a series called Empathy Boot Camp, which the rabbi was with us today to talk to us about empathy. How do we begin to feel the other person? How do we understand where they have come from, especially politically, when we are so set in our ways and so opposite? And I'm not sure what the answer is, except maybe it is empathy. Maybe it is really understanding, hearing, recognizing that there are certain things that we have in common or that we appreciate in each other. Our children, we love the country, or whatever it is, there are some common denominators that we have, and then begin to open up to hear the other person and go from there.
I want to mention one interesting incident in the year 2000, when an Iranian corporate merchant actually paid $103,000 to New York Times to buy one page of New York Times for one line of Rumi. And that line maybe makes much sense now as an answer to your question. آن سوی مرز درست و نادرست صحنه دیدار بین ما و توست. On the other side of the realm of who is right and who is wrong, there is an arena where we should meet. And so drop all value judgment. Let's meet. And my answer, in addition to great answers that my colleague said, is that we have to institutionalize, we have to mobilize, we have to create think tanks, institutions, conversation, dialogue, forums. I mean, what you just mentioned. We need to talk to each other before any kind of value judgment. Drop value judgment. Think about essentiality of companionship. And in the sense, in the spirit of what Rumi expressed, go and start a conversation. So, make a conversation with your neighbor, with whoever you can meet.
I wanted to know if the Muslim world is any closer, any better than we are in getting your politicians to actually work out some of these. I do this. I do meet with my conservative friends for lunch, and we have wonderful conversations, and there's some things we tippy-toe around, and some conversations that we have that we really try to understand where the other person is coming from. But I'm really curious if the Muslim world is any closer, any better than we are at getting to any of this answer.
Please,
No, by no means. As we talk today, there are 8 ongoing wars in the Middle East only. 8 wars. No, Middle East is not, Muslim countries are not any better, and therefore this what we need. This is a global paradigm shift that is much needed to be done. Let me give you one anecdote, maybe, again, going back to the lady and yourself. There was a Syrian imam in New York from time to time did Quranic exegesis, and we attended his talk. Civil engineering by profession, he later on transformed into a good theologian and made Quranic commentary. And he said that when I came early on to America, I was, highly optimistic and, very energetic, and I wanted single-handedly to change the whole world. And I had lots of ideas. Later on, as time passed by, I decided that New York City is good enough for me. I cannot change the whole world, and I should focus on New York City. A few years later, I said that maybe Hastings in in North New York is good enough. And finally, he said that I arrived with this result, that I cannot change the whole world. However, I can have an impact in my own family and my immediate neighborhood. And so let's have a conversation at least immediately, right here. So an answer is that let's do it ourselves, not wait for a genius to come out of the bottom and do the big job. But ourselves, what is our share? Our daily share in conversation. That's the question. We have a daily share in our conversation, and that helps.
I think that the problem is not between the people. The problem is the politicians. People can be good friends. They have intimacy. They have tolerance with each other. I think they look okay. How can we explain this to the politicians that they are the lawmakers? They are the gun control laws also, and how can we say them that, hey, you change your laws, try to make better, because people love each other. We just want to have a peace countries and peaceful world. And I'm a Rotarian, so we believe that the peace for the world. As you said that here, this is years and Rotary connect the world with each other. So I think we have to more emphasize to the governments and and politicians to behave better than they are doing now.
I could comment on that, just in general. I think you make a beautiful point. There is so much good in people, and I think politicians can, if they choose to, bring out either the good in people, or they can bring out the worst in people for their own benefit. They can exploit our weaknesses for their own gain. So that's what I think we're dealing with right now. And I think one aspect of human nature that some politicians have seized on is this dichotomy between us and them. We were talking about I and thou. I spoke about it earlier today. You spoke about it this afternoon. And but this concept of us and them that we see in our society, even here in our community, that there are these divisions where people see, well, this group constitutes us, but it's them that we're worried about, or them that we don't like, or that we want to keep out. I think somehow we have to get people to extend the boundaries of what they consider to be us. Eventually they'll realize that all of us are within that category, and I think our world would be much better if we could overcome those distinctions.
Well, just very briefly, I would say that politicians are us in some ways. They are humans that have said most of the time, I want to serve. They believe in something and they get up there and so forth. Our problem is, and I really agree, is that we have to have enemies almost. It's almost as if we have to have them to make us feel better about ourselves, or to help us know that we are part of a special group, that if we're in the inside, there's people outside, then we're special. And so if we invite all of those people in, we're no longer special. So it is widening that circle and welcoming all in and having some understanding. But I think politicians, and I've known many who have started off very well and with good intentions and so forth, but then we get trapped because they want to be reelected. And so they've learned to plug in to those of us who say them and us. And so if I plug into one of those, then I have a base, in which we certainly see that here in the United States. Yeah, thank you for your question.
Actually, just to put my mother's question into perspective, we're ethnically Turkish, and Turkey is very highly polarized now politically, for anyone who's aware. It used to be polarized in the past between seculars and conservatives, and now it's polarized between different sects of conservatives, and it's greatly divisive, and it's actually torn families apart, it's torn friends apart, and we see that even here in Turkish communities here in South Florida. It's not just over there, thousands of miles away. So it's very hurtful, and we really sort of, I see her, I feel her pain. But actually, I can't tell you how inspiring this talk was, Dr. Mahallati. I was already thinking in my head, after I get out of this door, what is it that I can do? So I'm active in the Muslim community, and my question is, what do you believe Muslim communities or individuals in the United States can do better in order to promote friendship that you have talked about? I know you talked about generally sort of building institutions, but more specifically, what do you think we could do more of and are not doing enough of, or what could we do better? And actually that question is to the entire panel, because you also have relationships with the Muslim community, and what would you like to see more of that you believe would help harness this idea of friendship?
You know, 2 millennium and a half, Aristotle said set a formula for friendship that I think is still valid. And he said that a good friendship needs 3 elements. Number one, a mutual consciousness, that we are in mutually conscious relationship, a relationship that is built on not happenstance, just accidents, but rather volition. I want to relate to you, and therefore be in that mode of trying to relate. The second element is emotion, whether you like the person or not, and work on your emotion. But the most important element is the third one, which is doing it together, acting together. It's not only conceptual, but any ideas, festivals, conferences, gatherings, walking in the forest, collecting waste in the jungle in terms of purifying the environment, any kind of action-oriented, doing it together, it really will help or create a momentum for friendship. So if you cook and offer your great art to some people and let them taste, if you walk with somebody, if you talk, if you dine with somebody, action is very important. A partial answer to your mom's very important question is that, a very important element in our hand vis-a-vis our politician is voting. And so we have to be active, vote, and if somebody does not serve, vote him out of the system that is, enjoying. So be more proactive politically and socially. Define within your own limits, every month, every week, what are activities that I did for friendship, for community building, for relationship. And this is very interesting. I did not have enough time. Usually when you talk about such a large subject, it takes lots of dimensions. Like what Hannah Arendt says, that democracy without friendship does not make sense at all, because without friendship there is no free conversation. Okay? Now this is from a secular stance. Now, what is your share of free conversation every week? So can we plan on everyday basis, that every month basis, that we need some kind of conversation? What is your share of conversation? With whom? Therefore, instead of letting ourselves to the events and say, let's see what happens, and how events will come after. You go after events. And therefore, it's not much surprising for a Shirazi to hear that Hafiz, 14th century, says, عاشق شوار نه روزی کار جهان سرایت ناخواندن نقش مقصود از کارگاه هستی. He says, fall in love or stand in love before the time is over and you have not done anything commensurate to the philosophy of life. He orders, and the Padre said, well, is love a matter of volition? Can I decide 8 o'clock in the morning and say, I want to stand in love today, I want to fall in love or stand in love? Is it a matter of volition? So Hafiz is telling us that love is a matter of volition. I would say that conversation at this is a matter of volition. So, one suggestion.
Well, I don't think I can add much more to what he just said. It was pretty perfect. We often talk in our tradition about community, and if you look at that word community, there's the word commune in it, which is about communing with one another, whether it's over a table or sharing bread and cup in our tradition, or being together in conversation, that builds community, and community, of course, is friendship.
I want to respond to your question by saying that at one time, the boundaries that divided different segments within the community, there was the Muslim community, then the Christian community, then the Jewish community. But I think now that the lines have shifted, and I think within each of our communities, there's the very liberal or secular or assimilated community and the very traditional or conservative. And so it's in my community, there are Orthodox people that don't accept me as a rabbi, or my values or what I represent, and there's a great deal of conflict within the Jewish community. Same thing to be said, there are people in the Christian community who don't care to hear what you have to say, and likewise there. So it's interesting that we have much more in common with one another than our more conservative or traditional co-religionists. And how do we bridge those gaps? That's the real challenge. I think we tend to be more open to listening. It's the more conservative or traditional ones that don't want to hear what we have to say. I don't know how to reach them. That's our challenge. But I do know this: in studying the Kabbalah, there is the there are the two opposite sides, and then there's the center, which is the balance. And I think it's very easy to go very far in one direction toward conservatism, and the other, it's very possible to go too far in the other direction, liberalism. There are extremes on both sides. And I think if we all make efforts to try to reach some agreement or friendship that tends to bring those two extremes toward the center, I think we would all be better off.
You mentioned the word trust in passing. I was wondering maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that relationship between trust and friendship, and whether trust is maybe a precondition for friendship, or it's the other way around. And what is the recipe, maybe across all Abrahamic religions, for generating that trust that then develop into friendship? Because I think that's maybe the source of all kind of evil, that generating trust, especially across different religions, and even across different countries from an international perspective, is easier said than done. Because trust requires some level of vulnerability, right? And how do you come to terms with that?
Well, you pinpointed a very important element. Trust is crucial for friendship. But you also mentioned vulnerabilities is a part of the critique, the trust. And of course, some authors have talked extensively about vulnerabilities. So the point is that once you are ready to show or present your vulnerability, your weakness to somebody else, that is a very important moment of that relationship, because by exposing yourself to another person through your weakness, you are showing a gesture of I come to you hands up, and I'm ready, and you can abuse this situation, and that is a very crucial moment. But how do you create that? With what kind of language? Now, one thing that our generation is a little bit intolerant of is direct language. Direct language is problematic, specifically when it comes from authority of religion to younger generation. They immediately resist. We don't want that authoritarian language. So what kind of language then is important in order to adapt and express our vulnerability? I would say art. Art is a great instrument in our hand, which is both beautiful and indirect, and therefore it may have very influential impact on our audience. So use the art language. Let me give you one example. A few years ago, I was in Shiraz, and I delivered a lecture to a student of Shiraz Art University about the 3 realms of peacemaking: ethics of war, ethics of forgiveness, and ethics of friendship. And after that, these students created 110 peace posters, conceptualizing all of those concepts into artistic form, expressing it artistic. So effective that I brought the exhibition to Oberlin, and now we have all of those art on a website that is accessible for everybody, and we are inviting people to come and send us their own peace posters, so we call it peace dialogue through posters. I found it very effective. So anybody with any kind of artistic talent, we can initiate a negotiation through art. Very, very effective.
I actually went on and saw those, and they're
Oh.
wonderful. Right. Well, let me thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for making this possible, and thank you all, and peace be with you. As we